Hello folks, it's me Laurel Ann, and I am here today to talk about my favorite books of 2020, finally. So I read 72 books in 2020, which for the second year in a row is the most books I've ever read in a year. So I'm quite pleased with that. Like last year, I decided to limit myself to about 10% of that number. So I'm going to talk to you about 7 books today. I also, in the cases of like where I read multiple books by an author, I limited myself to 1 book by that author. Why did I do that? I don't know. These are not ranked, by the way, because I don't need that kind of stress in my life. These are just in chronological order of how I read them. The first book I want to talk to you about is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste. It feels very weird to be talking about this book today because I read it a full year ago. I have fucking cat hair in my lipstick. I can't get it off. I'm gonna cry. Ha! I've done it. You're not allowed anywhere near my mouth. It feels very strange to be talking about this book right now because I read it a full year ago, like in January, February of 2020, and we fully lived in a different world then. This is about an artist named Mia and her high school age daughter Pearl, who are renting an apartment from a wealthy family called the Richardsons. And we basically just follow these 2 families as they become more and more involved with one another over the year. And we focus a lot on conflicts that arise both between these 2 families and also within the separate family units. I think this does a really good job of portraying like the deep psychic pain of being othered, especially when you want so desperately to become part of a community. This is just a really compelling read that also grapples with a lot of big and important things, which is kind of my favorite, like, it's not a genre, my favorite area of fiction. I love a book that will take me on a ride but also make me think, because I'm an intellectual. I really love the mother-daughter relationships in this. They're not always healthy, but they are always fully drawn and realistic and well rendered. This book also has what I think is a really fascinating conversation about interracial / intercultural adoption, and I found that especially interesting, and I loved thinking about that. And I think this is probably the only book, at least the only book I can think of that I've read that has that. So if anyone has any recommendations for other books or stories that tackle that topic in an interesting way, please recommend them below. Oh my god, the cat hair again in my lipstick. Okay, I don't need to be holding this book anymore. I'm done talking about it. Okay, so next we have How to Be Both by Ali Smith. This was kind of the year of Ali Smith for me. I think I read 4 Ali Smith books this year, and I loved them all, truly, truly. It's honestly a testament to how much I loved this book in particular that it outshone any of the seasonal quartet. For the record, if I had chosen one of those to go on this list, it would have been Spring. Like, that could just as easily have been one of my favorites if I hadn't arbitrarily told myself that I could only have 1 Ali Smith book. Anyway, this book tells 2 stories. The first is George, who is a 15-year-old girl in roughly the present day who is processing her mother's recent death. The other is Francesco, who is an Italian Renaissance Italian Renaissance painter. And even though these 2 stories very much stand on their own, there is a mysterious magical realism kind of connection between them. As is typical with Ali Smith, it's really the themes that make up the bulk of this book rather than the story. In this case, those themes are gender and gender expression, art and music, surveillance, freedom of speech and activism, grief, obviously, and somehow all of these things work together and fit together to create such a beautiful message, such a thought-provoking piece of art. I loved it. Ali Smith, I would say, kind of pushes the boundaries of the form of the novel. For example, in this book, depending on what copy you buy, you might read about Francesco first, or you might read about George first. I read about George first. Her writing really has more in common with poetry than with prose. She plays a lot with lists and wordplay, kind of magical imagery. I was absolutely blown away by this book. It's just her work is just so exciting to read, but this one in particular, I really connected with it, and I had a lot of fun reading it as well. All right, next we have Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. This, of course, tells 12 stories of 12 different people, mostly women. There is one non-binary character, and all Black or mixed race. As the novel unfolds, you slowly discover how all these characters are connected. It's all sort of centered on this one event at the theater as well. But the way this tapestry comes together is just so clever and satisfying, but also moving. Like I cried. The characters in this book are just so fully realized. They all feel real instantly. Like within a sentence, you feel like you could see these people in the street, or they could be your teachers or your friends. Even when you see a character from a different point of view, and you might see them in a totally different light, those different perspectives never really undermine the characterization that you've seen when you got their point of view, if that makes sense. I'm still totally in awe with what she's accomplished with this book. I just think it represents the multiplicity of experience so beautifully. I was really happy to see this on so many people's lists because it really holds a special place in my heart. So it's good that good that she's getting all the love she deserves. The next book I have to talk to you about is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is about a very insular group of 6 students studying classics at a teeny tiny liberal arts college in Vermont. And at the very beginning, we're told that they have murdered one of their group. And we start back at the start when Richard, the protagonist, transfers into the school, how he gets involved in the group, and eventually how they end up doing a murder. And it all starts out with a bang in the form of a prologue that is quite possibly some of the most precise and sinister writing that I've ever read in just a page and a half, I'm pretty sure. Donna Tartt is not afraid to burst through your door and say, buckle up because you are in for 500 odd pages. I had a recording error here, but I believe what I intended to say was that this is 500 pages of aesthetic perfection, because that's how I feel about this book. If I absolutely had to pick a #1 favorite from this list, it would probably be this. Although there are so many amazing books, so I'm hesitant to say that. But this definitely did go straight into my favorite books of all time sort of pantheon. Sorry about that notification sound. Okay, next we have Say Nothing, A True Story of Murder and Memory in Northern Ireland by Radden Keefe. Sorry, I said that so weird. It's just very hard for me to get subtitles of nonfiction books out of my mouth, so I just have to be very careful. But now we're back to normal talking. This is about the troubles in Northern Ireland. This covers quite a vast timeline of events that take place over different decades in different continents, but it's all kind of anchored by the story of the abduction of Jean McConville and what happened to her 10 children. But really, it primarily focuses on some of the most prominent members of the IRA or the Provost, and we really get a deep dive on their motivations, their tactics, and to some extent how they felt about this period of their lives after the Good Friday Agreement. This book is just incredibly fascinating. It is written in a way that's so readable and compelling and attention-grabbing, but it's also very sensitive to people on all sides. Except for Margaret Thatcher, but she doesn't deserve our sympathy. I really think that anyone who's interested in 20th century history should read this. I found that, somewhat surprisingly to me at least, it is remarkably relevant today with a lot of the conversations we're having about colonialism and radicalization. It is, in my view, a true masterpiece of nonfiction storytelling. Next we have Such a Fun Age by Reid, which I liked so much that I went out and bought a copy after I read it on ebook. That's how you know. This is about a 25-year-old Black woman named Amira who works part-time as a babysitter, and how her life changes after a racist incident wherein a random white woman at the grocery store, with the help of a security guard, accuses her of kidnapping the child. It also follows Alix, her wealthy influencer, like woke white liberal boss, and Kelly, who's a man who just happens to be at the grocery store that night and get the incident on film. If you've been on the internet, you've heard about this book 100 times, and that is for a good reason. It's just absolutely brilliant. I truly have never read a book that balanced like exciting plot and social issues so remarkably. I think pretty much everyone who reads this says they read it in a day or two, and that was my experience as well. I got so wrapped up in this story and these characters, but I also loved the way it made me think about myself and my life. Alix is a point of view character, and she really sees herself as a good, unproblematic person. She sees herself as an ally, and after this event, she becomes more and more invested in Amira's life and in trying to improve her life without ever actually asking Amira what she wants or how she could actually help her. Meanwhile, Kelly, who starts a relationship with Amira as time goes on, he is the kind of white person who is such an ally. He only has black friends and he only dates black girls, and it's just a lot of different archetypes that you probably have met, but the characters manage to be fully formed and fully realized and not be archetypes at all. Amira is a wonderful and sympathetic character who knows exactly who she is but isn't sure what she wants, and I loved that contradiction in her. If you are a white person, you will see yourself in this picture. I think that the way Kiley Reid has made this book into a mirror is just absolutely brilliant. What else can I say? Also, it's just a lot of fun to read. The final book I have to talk to you about today is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is the memoir of the woman who was known as Emily Doe during the sexual assault trial of Brock Turner, who gained a lot of national and international attention when her impact statement went viral. And with this book, Chanel is coming out as a victim and survivor and telling her story starting from that night and all along the long road from reporting the crime to the trial. Just like that impact statement that she read at the sentencing, this book is extraordinarily beautiful. It's the kind of book that left me absolutely floored by her writing. Every word is perfectly chosen and perfectly placed. Obviously, it's very hard to read. It's gut-wrenchingly honest, but it's also very inspiring and hopeful, and I really hope that anyone who can emotionally handle reading this book, obviously I want everyone to be cautious, but if you can, I really encourage you to pick this up. It is absolutely stunning. I was truly in awe of this book, and it's the kind of thing where I feel like we are truly lucky to be able to hear from this woman and have this voice as part of the literary canon now. It's just unbelievable. I can't wait for Chanel Miller to write more books, because if she does, I think she wants to. I just cannot get over how good this book is. It's like, it's truly mind-blowing. Okay, that's all. Let me know what your favorite books of the year were if you want. Thanks for being here, even though this video is going up so much later than I intended. What a weird year, right? But at least I read some good books. Okay, bye. Ugh. I never know how to end, like, talking about one specific book. It just, obviously I recommend them all. This is my list of best books.